second way of analysis is ABC analysis. So just similar to 80-20 rule, here we have more categories like category A, B, and C. So A is 10% of the stock numbers, which will give you 60%, 65% of the turnover. Then 20% of the stock, which is giving you 25% of the turnover, and 70% of the stock, which is just giving you 10% of the turnover. So instead of just segregation into 80 and 20, now we have segregation in three classes: 65%, 25%, and 10%. So this 70% of the stock is giving you just 10% of the turnover. That means the bulk is giving you a very small turnover. Like if you go to some kirana shop, then there are frequently running items which are typically kept in the front or just close to the counter or over the counter, and few items are not that frequently, but he has to maintain some stock of those items which are kept somewhere on the above the shelf, etc. So, but just for showcasing here, he has to maintain that stock. Or say, for example, there is say hardware shop, then the screws or nuts or washers, etc. They are very tiny items and they don't cost much, but he has to keep them in bulk. So like screws, etc. They will go in bulk. So that's why the major inventory can be of screws and nuts and bolts, which don't cost much, but the machinery which is costing higher and is giving more turnover, the stock may be lesser. Like he may just sell 3-4 machines and achieve like 50%, 60% of the sale, and he has to sell say 4,000-5,000 screws, and still he will not get that much turnover. So that's the difference. So the control levels are like, you should have bigger control on A, then lesser control on B, and still lesser control on C. Like class A items, these are not many. See, just 10% of the stocks we have in class A, but they are giving higher turnover. So the number is not higher, so it's easy to control the number, and that's why you have to tightly monitor the inventory for those class A items. Like if class A items, suppose it costs say 50,000 rupees versus just 2 rupee of screw, then you can have a rough number of screws in your shop, but the 50,000 item you cannot have, say instead of 5 items, I bought 8 items, then those 3 items will cost 1.5 lakhs more. So you cannot do that loosely. So that's why you should have tight control on class A items, because and it's easy because number is lesser, but since cost is higher, you should have tight control on that. Class B items, so let the system manages this, like what is the demand and supply is happening. Let the system manages the inventory required for class B. And class C, so it's negligible. There is not much cost associated with class C, but the number is bigger. So you can take risk, and you can keep excessive inventory of class C items because they don't cost much. Like 2 rupees screw, instead of buying 1,000 of screws, you bought 1,100 screws. Doesn't matter because there is not much cost associated with those extra 100 screws. So there is not tight management or tight control over class C items. Just more explanation on class A, B, C. So class A, few items, but most turnover. So our policy should be tight control over those few items. Personal supervision is required. Good communication, like from marketing, sales, purchase, etc. there should be good communication about class A items and JID, that is just in time approach should be followed here. So what is just in time approach, we are going to see and discuss more on that. Class B items, less important items, but still they have significant turnover. So if we see numbers here, so class B items are still giving us 25% of the turnover, which is not negligible value. It's a significant value. So it's a significant turnover, important items, but still not that tight control is required. Lean stock policy can be observed. So you can just use classical control methods. You don't need like mathematical modeling, this one, that one for class B items. Then class C items, there can be many items, low turnover value, and that's why minimum supervision, because not much cost associated with the sales of those items. Supply to order where possible, like whenever there is order, we'll supply it. Don't force the supply, don't buy extra, just manage it, and not much control is required. So typically it has large orders and zero to high safety stock policy. So safety stock policy, we'll talk more on that. And we can have zero safety stock or maybe higher safety stock, doesn't matter because not much value is associated with that. Then method is like frequent monitoring is required for class A items, accurate records to be maintained because higher cost is associated with that. And that's why you should have accurate records of all those things. Sophisticated forecasting, because if forecasting go wrong, then since higher cost is associated with that, your entire planning will go wrong. So that's why you have to rely on very formally sophisticated methods. In class B items, like rely on sophisticated methods, calculated safety stocks. We'll talk more on safety stocks. Limit order value, computerized management is typically followed for class B items. Class C items, very simple system, avoid stockouts and excess. So you just have to maintain the stock. There should not be stockout or there should not be excess stock. You have to just manage between stockout and excess. Then that's okay for class C items because not much cost associated with that. So let's take example here. So here are 10 items, and so these are just code names of those items, and annual usage, unit cost, and annual turnover for these 10 items are given. So like this item is sold annually, 21 units are sold, 105 units are sold for this item, etc. Unit cost for this item is say 700, 1100 for this one, and so on. And annual turnover coming from this item is this much rupees. Just random numbers I have taken here. So let's try to analyze this with the two analysis methods we just saw. So first one was Pareto analysis, that is 80-20 rule, and second one was ABC analysis. Let's see. So what I did here is annual usage. I just made a total and I calculated a percent of annual usage for that item. So here, if we see 35% usage is for this sixth item, then unit cost is given, annual turnover for each item is given. So annual turnover percent for that item can be calculated. So if we see here, then 66% of the annual turnover is coming from this sixth item. So since its price is also higher, so if we just compare, we have 100 rupee item, 400 rupee item versus this one is 1200 rupee item, and usage is also high, like annual sale for this one is also higher, and that's why 66% of the sales is coming from sixth item. So we just have to give ranks based on annual turnover percent. So likewise, I just gave the ranks. One is here, 2 is here. Now let's segregate or sort based on the ranks here. So based on the ranks, I just sorted it out, and we can see here now cumulative. If we see 80%, so if we add these two numbers, we'll get 82.92. So close to 80% of the turnover is achieved by selling just these two items. Now we have total 10 items. So 20% of 10 is 2. So just by selling these two items, that is 20% of the items, we are getting 80% of the turnover. So this is 80-20 rule, Pareto analysis. And remaining 80% of the items, that means the remaining 8 items are giving us just 20% of the turnover. So 80-20 is roughly we are saying. So 82.92 is okay. So these two items should be tightly monitored, or inventory for these two items should be tightly monitored. When I say inventory for these two items, that means raw material required for these two items and the finished product as well. So both the things, raw material and finished product, packaging material, everything required for these two items should be tightly controlled, because they are giving 80% of the turnover. So this is Pareto analysis, and then ABC analysis. So if we see ABC analysis, then what are the numbers? 65% of the turnover, that item is classified into A, 25% classified into B, 10% classified into C. Now we have this table, so we can see here close to 65 is this one, 66. So just this single item is giving us the annual turnover up to 66% yearly. So that will be classified into A class. Then these two together will have approximately 25%. So 16.28 plus 7.05. So approximately it comes out to be 23 point something. So this should be classified into class B, and remaining all items, they are giving just, so cumulative percent you can see here, 66%, then 89%. So these two items will be classified under class B, and all other items will be classified under class C. So A class items, just one item here is giving us 66%, and if we see the thumb rule here, then numbers 10% will give us 65%, 20% will give us 25%. So we have 10 items there, and 10% of the 10 items is just one item. So one item is giving turnover close to 65%. 20% of the 10 items is two items. So two items are giving us 25%, and remaining items are giving 10%. So approximately this thumb rule is working good here. So this ABC analysis is working good here. 10% of the items, that is one item giving us 65% turnover, to 20%, that means two items, giving us 25% of the turnover, and remaining 7 items are giving just 10% of the turnover. So this is ABC analysis. So I think it must have been more clear how these analysis methods work. So class A items, we have to tightly monitor the inventory. Class B items, there can be good inventory management, but not that tight as class A. And class C, we can loosely monitor the inventory for class. Then extended analysis based on ABC analysis is A, B, C, D, O, F, Z. So there are different categories. So instead of just three categories A, B, C, now we have four major categories A, B, C, D. So 45% of the turnover A class items, 30% of the turnover B class items, 22% of the turnover C class items, and 3% of the turnover D class items. Then apart from these ABCD, we can have O class, which is non-moving items. That means in our sales brochure, we have those items listed, but few items are non-moving, like just for showcasing, we have them on our brochure, but we supply it as per requirement or as per order. So these are called as non-moving items. So we may not stock them in warehouse. Just as per the order, we can produce it and supply it. So these are classified under O class items. Then F class items like fixed, non-fixed stock level items. So typically PPE, that is personal protective equipment, like as a the aprons, hand gloves, hair nets, etc. These are PPE. So PPE kit is a very popular term nowadays because of the COVID. So all those items which they wear under the name of PPE kit, basically, these are fixed item levels you have to maintain. Like if you have say 80 workers in your factory, then you have to maintain PPE for those 80 workers. There cannot be up or down for that because you have fixed number of workers there or tools required for maintenance, etc. So fixed stock level you have to maintain. There cannot be up and down there, and those can be classified as F class items. And Z class items, that means no stock items. You are not stocking that item, just as per requirement, you buy it, process it, and sell it. So there is no stocking of those items. But in inventory management system, they has to be listed because sometimes you are purchasing that, processing, and immediately dispatching. So there is no storage in the warehouse, but still you are purchasing and selling those items, but they are not stocked. So that's why those are categorized as non-stock items, and they come under Z class category. So this is just extension of ABC analysis. And the factors which we need to consider for these analysis are supply lead time. That means you place the order today, and after how many days you will get that order. So some specialized item your supplier will produce after you give the order. So there is longer lead time associated with that. Some are ready items, like you order today and tomorrow they will be delivered. So likewise, you have to consider that lead time while maintaining the stock in the warehouse and while ordering the items. Then average demand rate for your finished goods in the market, variability of the demand. So there can be seasonal variations because of the summer, winter. So beverages will be sold more in summer, or the sweets will be sold more in festival season, etc. So there is variation in the demand that you need to consider. Supply frequency. What is the frequency for the ordering and for the supply also, that you have to consider. Then customer delivery time allowed, like customer place the order and then after how many days you will be delivering that item. Like customer is okay if you deliver the item after 1 week, or if it is or customer is okay if you deliver in 15 days, etc. So that delivery time allowed is to be considered while maintaining the stock. And there are also practical considerations like reliability of the supplier. So if any vendor is very reliable that you place the order and tomorrow he will deliver, then you can maintain lower inventory of that. But if your supplier is not that reliable, like sometimes he will deliver tomorrow, sometimes he will deliver after 5 days, then it's not reliable. Supplier is not reliable. Then you have to maintain, or you have to decide the safety stock accordingly. Then criticality of the item, like if you don't have say preservative for the production, then you cannot take the production batch. So then that is a critical item. But sometimes like salt. If you don't get Tata salt, you can use some other salt. That is okay. So then that's not a very critical item, and you can get it easily. Then criticality is lower for that item. But the flavor, like for example, like flavor, some company flavor you have already optimized in your formulation, then you have to have used that company flavor in that amount only. If that flavor is not available, your production is stopped. You cannot use alternative. So that's a critical item. Then availability of the item from other sources. Like I said, say salt. If this brand salt is not available, another brand salt you can use. So it's not that critical, and it's available also. So availability of item should also be considered. And always some backups you should keep ready. Like for some cases like flavors, etc., there may not be backup. Like if flavor from this company is not available, then another company flavor you have to change almost entire formulation. Then that may not work. But say like baking soda, if the baking soda from this company's this supplier is not available, you can keep backups ready. Like this supplier cannot give us today, then another supplier you can tap and get the uh, stock from other supplier. Then stock cover. So stock cover, typically it is calculated uh, using this formula. And basically it tells us for how many weeks that stock is sufficient for us. So that is called as stock cover. So that's why you see the factor of 52 here. So whatever is the current stock multiplied by 52 and divided by forecast annual usage. So historical data will be available with your company, and what is the annual usage for that item, you can use it here. So let's take example here so that it will be more clear. So again, we have 10 different items, and there is a stock for those 10 items. There is annual usage given here. And now we can calculate stock cover using this formula. So what does it tell? So item number 1, we have 250 units in stock. Annual usage is 2000 units. That means in a year, we will require 2000 units. So that means 250 units of stock is sufficient for 6.5 weeks. I'll repeat, 250 units of stock is sufficient for 6.5 weeks. So this is stock cover. Now, items which are marked in red here that need more attention. So like, let's take example of item number 4. There are 15 items in stock and we need 1000 items annually. That means the stock of 15 items is sufficient for just 0.78 weeks. That means even less than 1 week. Then we need special attention why there is so less stock of this item. Maybe there is order already placed for this item and it is arriving, but still it is the stock is less than 1 week. Similar is the case. This is just above 1 week. 8 items are in stock and we require 4,000 units of that item. So it is, so this 8 items or 8 units are sufficient just for 1 week. Now these items, item number 3, 7, and 10. See here. So we have 500 units in stock and annual usage is 400 units. That means this stock is enough for more than 1 year. So for 65 weeks, this stock will be sufficient. Same is the case here. So this is even more than that. So 500 units are in stock and annually we just require 200 units. So this stock is sufficient for more than 2 years. Similar is the case here. 65 items in stock and we just need 20 units per year. So 169 weeks this stock will last. So these items need more attention, like why so much items are ordered and why we have so much of units of these items in stock. It is just eating our space and we are paying more cost for storage of these items. Stock is enough for more than a year here. So special attention required there for these items which are marked in red here, highlighted in red here. So stock cover is used for analysis, but not for control. Like the control of the inventory is not based on the stock cover, but it is used for analysis. Like I am saying here, like 500 items are in stock, which are enough for more than a year here, but the minimum order quantity might be 500 items, or the transport cost associated with that, or the seasonality, like if you are proceeding, say, some fruit which is seasonally available just for 15 days in a year, then for entire year you have to stock that fruit in that 1 month only. So likewise, there can be factors associated with that, but so that's why stock cover is used for analysis, but not for controlling the stock. Then stock cover is also related or connected to our ABC classification. So class A, which is giving you highest turnover, so stock cover can be minimum for that, like because maximum cost is associated with class A material and number is smaller, and the stock can be just sufficient for 1 to 4 weeks. So lower number for class A, because more working capital is invested in class A because they are costlier material, and that's why we will keep minimum inventory for class A, and that can be sufficient for just 1 to 4 weeks. Class B, 2 to 4 weeks is okay. Class C, 3 to 20 weeks. So since class C items are less expensive, lesser cost is associated with class C, just 10% of the annual turnover. So we can have class C items in stock for longer period of time, because not much cost is associated with the class C items.